Well, everyone, welcome to the Shorter Artist Hour, where I talk to my superbly talented friends that I think the world needs to know more about. And we might not talk for a full hour, but that's okay because it's the Shorter Artist Hour because I'm Susan Shorter. And today I have the honor, nay, the privilege to introduce you all to the sculptor of the bazaar, Mr. Tom Kuebler. Yay. Thank you so much for joining me on here. And how are you doing?
Oh, we're doing good. It's winter, so winter's a little more difficult for guys like me who suffer from affective seasonal
Seasonal
affective.
depression. Oh,
Yeah.
it
So in
is
fact, the
real.
light that's on us right now that is illuminating us is my anti-seasonal affective depression disorder,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah, my light that we ordered from wherever we got it from.
Does that
So,
work? Because I am of that same ilk. Yeah.
I haven't used it that much this year because we've really up until recently we've been really lucky weather-wise, and of course we have a dog, so she insists on walks. And up until a couple of weeks ago, it was really warm here, and we
Yeah.
were walking every day. We have a good park system here. There's parks everywhere, so that's helped immensely. So,
Nice.
yep.
Oh, doing the intro reminded me, I've seen your name written, but I've never spoke it before. And so I had to ask you before the interview because like it looks like it could be pronounced Kubler, Kubler, Keebler. So the world should know it. Keebler is how you say it.
Well, the world disagrees wholeheartedly on some of this. You know,
Okay.
I mentioned before I had a funny story about this,
Yeah.
and I'll tell it real quick. About 10 years ago, Tara insisted because I had what we thought was a family history of colon cancer to go
Oh,
in and what do they call it? Colonoscopy,
yeah.
So I go in, and it turns out I didn't. My uncle died of something else. What we were told by my cousin, his daughter. So, but we thought it was colon cancer. So she's like, "You got to make sure when you turn 50, you get that colonoscopy." So she
Yeah.
made the appointment. We go in, and I'm in the waiting room, and this very, very German nurse comes out and goes, "Thomas Kubler?" And I said, "No, it's Keebler." And she said, "No, it's not." And I said, "Well, we've always pronounced it that." And she said, "Then you would be wrong." And I didn't want to argue with her because in about 10 minutes she was going to have me in a very compromised position.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
not the best.
but apparently after they, semi knock you out for this,
Yeah.
I had quite an argument with this lady that I don't even
Oh my
remember.
God.
And Kara was in the waiting room, and she said the whole place was uproarious with laughter with me arguing with this German lady who was telling me that I've been pronouncing my name wrong all these years. So,
Was that during the exam, like during the
you
twilight
know,
sleep thing?
I guess I was either going in or coming out of it. I can't remember which, but I can't remember anything. Even going out the door, I'm going, "I'm going to tell my father it's been wrong all these years." So, yeah, it was a. So anyway,
We say Keebler.
we say Keebler, and
All
um,
right.
I don't correct anybody when they call me Kubler anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess, or Kuebler, you know, or Kubler. A lot of people say Kuebler, like the cue ball, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
So
there were
yeah,
too many options, and I felt bad. I
right.
was like, I can't have you on here and say you're a friend of mine. I don't even know how to say your name. So
Yeah,
that
yeah. Well, we're friends now for sure.
right
Well,
on.
everybody
Yeah,
just says Tom, so
yeah,
that makes
yeah,
it simple.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or Keebs. They call me Keebs for years. All through high school, I was Keebs.
Well, I
Yep.
guess we should probably at some point start talking about the art you've got there. Um
Sure.
it's obvious you've got a massive love for like the macabre and the odd and the weird and wonderful things. Where did that come from? Where did that root itself into you?
Oh man. I think it's my earliest childhood memories of the good memories.
Mm.
Um, was sitting up and watching Ghoulardi with my dad and seeing the movie Frankenstein. And so, and my father was in the Air Force, but he didn't, he wasn't in air, planes or anything. He was a communications guy who installed telephones.
Oh,
So
yeah.
one of his big jobs was, he spent his entire service career in Darmstadt, Germany, where Frankenstein's castle, the real castle, and he installed
Cool.
the phone system in a lot of places around Darmstadt, Germany, and stayed in Frankenstein's castle. So it was sort of a, oh, and my dad would, of course, embellish stories about his time there. And he had all kinds of pictures of the, castles there and the gargoyles and stuff. So that's like my earliest memories of
Yeah.
sitting up watching horror movies with him. And, and then the circus thing, the freak show thing, we went to Sarasota, the home of Barnum and Bailey. And one of my biggest memories there is my grandma wanted to buy us some toys. So we went in this gift shop and as we were coming out, there was this tiny woman that was smaller than me at 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I thought she was a kid with an old lady's face. So I'm commenting to my mom and my grandma, look at her. She's a kid with it, and the lady was so sweet. She's like, I'm young, 76 years old. And I was just blown away by this. What a cute, nice, funny lady she was, and how sweet she was. And so that, those little things played heavily into my, my youth plays real heavily into my work.
So were you sketching that kind of stuff as a kid and everything? Did you draw a lot?
Yeah, they really, when teachers saw my notebooks and stuff, they really wanted to have my head examined.
Yeah.
And and then of course there was the monster model kits, the Aurora kits, my earliest memory, those monster model kits.
I don't
So
really remember those. I'm 46, so I don't know if
yeah, you were born right at the end of those. They're still out there.
okay.
They've been taken over. Aurora went out of business back in the 70s, and then maybe it was the early 80s, I don't know. But then they got purchased by a number of other kit companies and
Cool.
Aurora Polar Lights and all this. Anyway, every guy that was my age that was into monsters had the monster model kits of Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Hunchback, Dracula, Creature. They just pumped them out. King Kong, Godzilla, and I think do I have any right up here?
I don't know if you have anything.
Oh, okay.
Were they like plastic, like a car kit kind of thing?
Yeah. They're like, plastic model kits. So we just spent. My mother taught ceramics in our basement, and we would paint our monster models down there. And my brother and I did this for all the way up until my mom passed away and we had to sell the house and all that stuff. She taught ceramics down there to all the neighborhood ladies. Would all pull their cars into the Kuebler area house, and they'd all go down there and bitch about their husbands and
I love it.
And dirty jokes, and cigarette smoke would come wafting through the vents at night when I was trying to sleep, going on school nights and listening to them laugh and howl and talk about their husbands, and just
I love that. So
but there was always clay in the basement.
yeah, so that makes sense then, where you would start sculpting and playing.
The clay was, it was the soup tureens and the Christmas trees and all that molded stuff. If something got broken before it got fired, I would get the scraps of it. We'd throw it in a plastic bag, put some water in it, crush it up with a hammer, and 2 days later, I'd have a nice wad of clay that I could sculpt. And so that's how it all started.
Fantastic.
And I was a terrible student, and I got terrible grades, and I had ADD and every kind of learning disability you can imagine, which I later got diagnosed at 32 years old. that I had, I brought in old report cards and they're like, oh my God, this guy's off the charts, this poor kid, So art was the only place I really shined,
Yeah.
And of course I was really into the weird stuff. So that didn't help my, my school situation, but that's what I loved.
Well, it sucks whenever they find out that, you have a learning disability or ADHD or whatever later on. My brother had dyslexia, but they didn't discover that till he was already done with school. He was over it. But I knew
Me
that
too.
he was
Yep.
brilliant, but
Yeah.
he just had the words would fight him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Me
you
too.
had,
Same thing.
yeah.
Dyslexia. In fact, when I was in kindergarten, the teacher said, go home and write your name on the board and go hide, and I'll call your name tomorrow morning and you come out. And she's like, Eric, and Eric would come out from behind the curtains, and Beth would come out from behind the restroom door, and Millie would come out from under the whatever. Mott, 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 and I'm back there crying,
Oh,
because that was me,
oh, you poor thing.
That was, teachers didn't know what to do with a kid like me because very little was known about it. And they
Yeah.
kept testing my eyes. They kept, do you need glasses? No, he doesn't need glasses.
You can see
it's
Mott just fine.
yeah. So Mott went through a hard time at school with teachers that didn't know what to do with him.
Damn.
Yeah.
So
Except
did
for
you
the
go
art
on?
teachers. Our teachers, so yeah.
Did you go on to art school, or did you just continue?
Yeah. Well, I went to Kent State University, and
Okay.
the reason that I did was because my mom went there when she never graduated from there, but she took art, so I spent a year between high school and college. I took a year off and tried to be like I worked at my friend's moving company,
Yeah.
and then and I gained like 20 pounds of muscle, and because we were moving, but I hated it. I just hated it. I was like, my mom's like, now do you want to try school?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they insisted that I go into graphic design because that's where the money was,
Yeah.
we don't want you to become some studio artist. So I said, all right, and I quietly changed my major 2 years later without telling him, and my dad was really pissed.
So art was always the goal for you then, like it didn't just
Not
happen.
only was it the goal, I'm unemployable.
And you have no other skills.
Oh no, it's just that I tried other jobs. I was a very good lifeguard, but you certainly couldn't do that. Past
Sure.
your, I was a really good lifeguard because I was hyper vigilant, and so. But I tried being a bartender, and then they brought in these newfangled computerized cash registers, and I screwed that up something awful, and they fired me the first week. I tried being other things. I was a tire buster for May Company.
Wow.
Got fired because they had these long catalog numbers for all the tires, and I couldn't find them, and I was, I just screwing things up. I screwed a lot of things up.
Oh no.
The learning disabilities really, really, and so I knew that I had to put all my eggs in the art basket, or, there's something about when there's no net under your tightrope, you really learn to stay on the tightrope, and that was what I had to do. I was like, there's no way I cannot, I can't not be an artist.
Yeah.
Because it just was the only, I was going to get in the Navy and be a Navy SEAL, and my art teacher stopped me and went, oh no, you in the military, I would have either killed somebody else by accident or blown my own brains out on purpose. It would have been a very, yeah.
Well,
So
I'm kind of in a similar boat now, just for the fact of like, well, one, I've always wanted to be a painter, an artist, and all that kind of thing. It just is who I am. But on the other hand, looking at, say, if I wanted to pick up a side job or something for a graphic design position, which I can do graphic design because, like you said, they had us learn it in college because that's where the money was. But I don't
Mhm.
know how to do Illustrator or InDesign, and now they want you to be a videographer too, and all these other things. I was like, I draw good pictures,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
so I'm just doubling down on that, and we'll see where it takes me. But yeah, just saying
So
that AI scaring the hell out of me now with the whole illustration thing. I would think in your neck of the woods with art that you're fine. Um,
uh,
really?
I well, I mean, I I see this take getting into with everybody 3D printing now.
Oh yeah.
Um, I don't think it's going to be long before these jerks try to get everything. There's no greed seems to be a really prevalent disease in the art world now,
Yeah.
and it's sad. It's sad that because what I love what Guillermo said. How it's just gonna. I wish I should have written a quote now. But basically, he alluded to the fact that when you steal from regular art, from real artists, and then that art starts feeding on itself, that all of the spontaneity leaves, and what you're left with is just a recycling of the mundane, you
Yeah.
know, and that is where it's going already. I'm inundated on Facebook with these. It's amazing how these big wood carvers all of a sudden showed up at the same time AI showed up,
Yeah.
and everybody's going, "Oh, what fantastic work!"
Mhm.
With wood carving that's bigger than any tree could ever grow to
Yeah.
create. And so I'm hoping that it phases out because people are sick of that. You
Yeah.
know, and so 50% of me says that this is going to fizzle out, and the other 50% of me is going, it's going to get worse. And I don't, one day on a Tuesday, I'm feeling like it's going to fizzle out, and on
Yeah.
Thursday, I'm feeling like it's going to get worse, and they're going to keep going, and you
Well,
know,
it feels me like you can get on social media and I see people from my hometown and stuff sharing things that they don't even realize it's AI, but like, look at this strange
exactly,
frost formation on this lake. And it's like, that's not real. But it's
yeah,
even get to
yeah,
a point where I've done art, digital art and everything for years. And there's still some that I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know that was, because they're getting really good. And that's
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and the
yeah.
fakes with the faces and actors and stuff. But
Well,
anyway,
yeah, yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah, it's muddling things up in every from politics to to art to science to learning to
yeah,
there's no reality anymore. It's like you don't know what's real.
yeah.
It was bad enough before it should, and now it's terrible. Yeah,
Well, this sounds like a real odd place for me to transition back to the like college, like in your career
yeah,
going,
yeah.
I don't,
Sorry, tangent.
hey, no, tangents are good. I like them.
Okay.
But okay, post college, what's happening? Art world. I see that you like did some toy prototypes.
Yeah, my first job was I got to know Tom Wilson of Ziggy fame. Um,
Oh, okay.
Remember Ziggy?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah,
Yes.
his son has since taken over the comic strip after he passed away, but Tom Wilson was an awesome dude. And he had a good friend who he sort of co-owned a gallery with, Cindy Deering. And so I was wandering around with paper mache stuff, going from place to place, going, could you show my work? And it was really rudimentary. And Cindy was really sweet. And she's like, oh, I love your stuff. Yes. And
Huh.
so I would go in there to check on things from time to time. And Tom Wilson was sitting there in his green leisure suit that he always wore. And I got to know him, and we got to really like each other. And he hired me. We started out freelancing for those characters from Cleveland, which was like a subsidiary of American Greetings. And they did Mad Balls and My Pet Monster and Strawberry Shortcake and stuff like that. And
That's my childhood. You don't still have a My Pet Monster somewhere in there, do you, for sale?
No, I, do,
Or
I don't.
Madball?
I don't have that. I got a Madball.
Oh, I guess I could get on eBay and find one. I just need to know which ones you created so I can have you sign one. I'll put it up in my
Well,
studio.
there was never anything that any one artist created,
Okay.
and that was probably the part of it that I had the hardest time with.
Yeah.
It was always, it was always a conglomeration of all the artists and art directors, and they would just do things to death. You know,
Yeah.
so but it was one of the funnest places ever because of and I still meet with these guys for dinner once or twice a year in Cleveland. We go back to some restaurant, Houlihan's,
That's
and
so
we'll
cool.
sit down with the boss who had to fire me, you know,
Yep.
because I had my issues, and so, but we've always been good friends, and I felt so bad for him having to do this, but he had to fire me, and right then after that, I had to go someplace else, and I started working in Toledo for a display company, and we started building animatronic robots.
Oh, how awesome. What were the robots for?
Everything, trade shows, theme parks, museums, everything,
That's
everything.
so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, but again, it was one of those things where I did it for 12 years, and there were a lot of, new people that my partner who owned a big chunk of the company hired on, that we had a lot of clashing personalities and
Hmm.
differences of opinion, and I had just had it. I had just and not to mention I owned none of my own time. I was on salary. I was on, weekends weren't mine. If they wanted to call me in on a Sunday when my family was there, which happened, I hadn't wanted to see my nephew for the first time, and my brother came all the way from Indianapolis to, and they're like, no, you have to come to work, because we have this project due, and we promised it by some ridiculous early, so it was crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had to quit. And that's when
Got burned out.
got burned out. Yeah, I got burned out, and Kara was showing up in my life right around then.
Nice.
And
So were you
and
doing your own stuff on the
oh
side?
yeah, all along the way I was trying to work on my own work,
Yeah.
So all along the way I was working on my own work, and Kara and I started dating, and then it got more serious and more serious. And one of the things that I found so wonderful about this girl is that she, when so many other people would be like, "Oh, don't quit your day job," she was like, "Quit your damn day job. We can do this." And then she picked up her end of it and started reading everything from eBay to dummies to business of art books and then she learned the technology, and she started entering me in Spectrum. She was the reason that I first got into Spectrum. Was we found a Spectrum book at a bookstore, and she bought it for me. And she's like, "You could do this." And I'm like, "Oh no, those people are too good." She goes, "No, no, no, you gotta, we'll photograph your work and we'll send it in."
Hell yeah.
And so, yeah, so not only did she send in the work, I knew a professional photographer, so he took the first couple shots before I learned to photograph my own work. And I won the silver and the gold in Spectrum 11
I've got a collection of them, so I'm gonna have to dig into that after our interview.
Yeah, if you've got Spectrum 11, that was my first, and I won the silver and the gold.
That
My first, and so I almost passed out. I mean, she called me. I was visiting a guy that I was doing some freelance for, and she called me there because she was so excited and said, "Are you sitting down?" And I was like, "Yes." And I wasn't sitting down. I lied to her. And she told me, and my knees got weak, and I had to quickly find a chair because I didn't even think I'd get in, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my wife and has been ever since. And
Yes.
she's, I'm not a tech, I don't do tech stuff. She learns it if she needs to do it,
Yeah.
and my encouragement and all that stuff. So she's been there for me, you know.
I do the admin part of the business and all that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I wish I could borrow you, but that belief in you and your spouse as an artist is so important. I remember I was engaged to a guy back in my 20s that he finally admitted he felt that me being an artist was like an NBA dream. So I was done with that.
Yeah.
And the man I'm with now is like, I went off on my own freelance and I'll have panic attacks seeing my savings going down this. And he's just like, no, I believe in you. You're good enough. You're amazing. And we're just going to find new ways to, get your art in front of the right people. And that's so wonderful that you found that in her.
It really is. Yeah. If you don't have, if your own spouse or family isn't behind you, it's so extra hard
I can't
to,
imagine doing it.
especially when the times are, because I will have those too. I'll have those panic attacks, oftentimes for a lot less reason, than I make shit bigger than it needs to be.
Same.
And she's like, just calm down. And then she'll start citing examples of remember when, and and then I'll be all fixed and I'll be able to go on,
Oh, that's badass.
So, yeah.
So, okay, you were doing toy stuff, you were doing animatronics and all this, working on your stuff on your own. When did you decide to just transition and put both feet into your own work?
It was right around 2000. The 9/11 happened, and so we were really scared. And then
Sure.
I did some stay afloat work for a company called Gag Studios, which made sort of hard, rigid foam Halloween props, and now they're collector's items,
Cool.
But
Did you keep any?
No, we don't live in a really large house, so it's
Yeah.
it's hard to store stuff, especially for me who has to store my life-size pieces here. So I gave a lot of it away over the years. So no, I still when I go to conventions, sometimes the Mask Fest stuff,
Yeah.
someone will approach me with a big piece of foam that I sculpted back in 2001. And could you sign this? So I'll sign this big, vampire that I made for them or
so
something.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned your life-size pieces. I love your work. I hadn't seen it until I saw you at a LuxCon, and that giant has just he pays rent in my brain. He is there all the time. I love him. And with these giant pieces though, it's not like you just decided to sculpt a giant. Like they have personalities. Like I believe he has a family that lives in the woods somewhere.
He
And
does. Yeah.
out in
Oh,
Ohio?
No, it's in a fictional place called Razorback Holler.
Oh,
And
fucking
and
fantastic.
that's where Cletus and Shorty is
Yeah.
his cousin. Cletus was the one that won the gold award for Spectrum and stuff. But I have got a whole series of inbred country bumpkins that are
I love it.
happy and kind and sweet people that live isolated in this area that no one knows about in Razorback Holler, somewhere in where is it? The Appalachian, deep where no one goes. And
Yeah.
they, and so Goliath Greeley is their cousin who lives there. And there's, it gets really elaborate. There's all kinds of little places in my brain that wanted to come out and manifest themselves in life-size or bigger than life-size sculpture.
Yeah, well, I grew up in very rural Indiana. So it's like I feel like I know these people where I see them.
Mm-hmm.
But I am curious, do like the personalities come to mind first and then you just figure out how you're going to bring them to life? Or do you come
Exactly.
across okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I grew up in a really dysfunctional but very animated family.
Yeah.
I had
For good artists.
my grandfather Kuebler was, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you know, he was a big drinker.
Okay.
If you look on eBay, you still see from his grandfather's company was Kuebler beer.
Really?
And you still see bottles on eBay from Kuebler beer, but he had stories. Everybody was the whole Kuebler side of my family and some on my mother's side too. We're all super big storytellers and we're very animated people. My dad's side especially, and he was really an animated guy. He was kind of a, you know, he was kind of a, he hung with some, you know, uh, what's the prohibition guys, you know, yeah, my grandpa
Yeah.
Kuebler. So, you know, but you listening to him tell stories and stuff. So that was some of it. Norman Rockwell was a huge influence. So those faces
Yeah.
from Norman Rockwell sort of, you know, his ability to capture character
Yeah.
blended in with the people that I got to know growing up, my family and friends of family and stuff like that. Sort of were the personalities behind this. And then I would find pictures or see somebody where I could sneak a shot of them with my, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then I'd start sculpting. You know, I would just start sculpting.
The Norman Rockwell thing makes sense to me because in a lot of his pieces, it's not necessarily a beautiful person, because you see that a lot in paintings and stuff. You always do just these beautiful, you know, glamorized people, but they're just very
Right.
real. They have freckles and wrinkles, and you do the same thing, and it adds the story. It adds.
I think I think that's the beauty in people is their individual caricature.
Yeah.
That's the, you know, James Bama. Are you familiar with James Bama?
I'm not sculptor, painter.
He's a painter.
Okay.
Did a little sculpting in his life, but not much, but a painter. And I found a book, The Western Art of James Bama, which he did everything from, he did the box covers for those monster model kits
Oh,
that
okay,
I
cool.
talked about. He
Yeah.
did all of the paintings of those things, in one of which he used his own wife to pose as the Salem witch when he did the kit for the Salem witch. You know, it was so cool. And but he did some, and that his portraits look like photographs, but with so much more personality. And the people that he chose to paint were very influential into my world, because that was the kind of thing I was looking for, you
I
know.
love that.
So yeah.
Well, and looking at your pieces, do you sew? Do you make clothes? Because all of these things look like you do. All right, because
I
I wrote the swine goblin. Just with all the ruffles and everything, everything looks like it was made for that character.
Yeah. Well, I'll find stuff at Goodwill or Salvation Army or some antique store, and then alter it to fit the character. And sometimes I'll just hand sew it right onto the body, you know, to make it fit better and stuff. And then if I really have a really serious job, for instance, the giant overalls.
Yeah.
I found a woman who, you know, that's what she does.
Okay.
And so she's an amazing seamstress. And so I found her, and I sculpted out the body, and then she took measurements off of that, and we back engineered a regular pair of overalls and cut it apart into a pattern, and then made it fit his body.
Yeah.
And then I took it to the belt sander and beat the hell out of it and sanded it with, you know, a bunch of sandpaper and stuff, and spray dyed it and put random stainage on it and
I love that.
all that stuff, and took it from brand new denim down to old worn denim with holes in it and patches on it and all that stuff. And
That just sounds fun to me. And I'm assuming with like the shoes and the jewelry and all the accoutrements and accessories and stuff, are you just like a hunter gatherer of
yes.
pieces?
We're getting antique stores, and whenever the weather's nice, we make some pilgrimage out to some antique mall or, and stuff like that. And just and a lot of times that's the inspiration for the whole piece. I'll find like uh, there is a piece called Lady Luminitza,
Okay.
and she is a little midget gypsy.
I
And
remember seeing her.
yeah, she when we lived in North Carolina, there was a flea market. There was this lady who's this wonderful woman that her whole reason for living, she bought this thing called the cotton mill, which was an old cotton mill in North Carolina. And she turned it into a giant flea market antique store. And the whole thing was there to support stray dogs that she had adopted, and
That's
then
awesome.
adopted those, and cats, and
Aw.
adopted those back out. And so Raylene, her name's Raylene. She was an awesome woman. And I would go there every weekend, and she'd find stuff for me. And she found a wheelchair for me, an old antique wheelchair. So I'm just giving you this because I know you can use it.
Oh, so cool.
And then that was Dr. Nighty Night. That was his wheelchair. I welded on this thing that supported this headless zombie that I was thinking, how could I build a little motor for Dr. Nighty Night? And then I thought, I don't need a motor. This guy's whole job is bringing the dead back to life. Just use a headless body to just push the thing around. And then he just has a thing that stimulates the left nerve. So it's like a rudder on a ship where he'd start walking left, when he needed to go left, So that's the story behind a piece like that. But it was all started with a wheelchair that she found. Or the Lady Luminitza piece, for instance, there was an old steamer trunk that opened up into this sort of a closet for your hotel room.
Oh, cool.
That these steamer trunks for when train travel was all the rage before planes showed up, and they would take your luggage, and these women with these elaborate dresses and stuff would have a whole chest full of these things, and they had a closet with a hook rod that came out and stuff. Well, I altered that thing to become a fortune-telling booth,
Fantastic.
And it all started with it. Kara was like, "Oh, I'm seeing something happen with that. You got to buy that." And I'm like, "All right, I'm buying it." And before I knew it, I'm buying old antique sewing machines and cutting them apart to make the chair and and welding stuff, because I weld and I do metalsmithing and
Perfect.
So yeah.
So, Kara, are you into the dark and spooky, macabre stuff as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I was an art minor in school, and so I can kind of have an eye to help him with, feedback, even,
Sure.
capturing a likeness and costuming, positioning and stuff. But really he's the one who really, makes it happen and stuff. But yeah, I've always, I was a weirdo kid like him, just 10 years later.
Yeah,
I'm the young chick, haha. And I was the one checking out the Zodiac Killer books at the library, and I've always been interested in the bizarre and unusual, and I guess kind of dark kind of stuff.
I'm
And
obsessed with true crime, so we could totally
Yeah.
chat at a LuxCon.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. And so people ask me all the time, aren't you, what do you think of all this stuff? How can you have that in your house? And like, I love it.
Yeah.
Really. It was not an adjustment for me, the way some people might be like, whoa, this is too much. Yeah, no, I'm on board.
That's fantastic. Well, and talking about like hunting and gathering your pieces or elements of your pieces, are those like real teeth and real horns and stuff do you use, or are they cast, or is it a little bit of everything?
It's a if I really need something made, I just make it. Sometimes there's real teeth. That I've got everybody working for me. My dentist, when when I show up to get my teeth cleaned and stuff, she'll like, "Oh, because what she does is when she's not working at her dentist office, she volunteer dentists does dentistry for old folks' homes. What's the word for that?
For nursing home?
Nursing homes. Yes.
Does she bring you real teeth?
And so, yeah, sometimes when there's teeth extractions and stuff like that, And she's like, "Do you want these?" And they'll go, "Oh no!" And she'll go, "Oh, I know who does." And she'll sterilize them and give them to me in these little packets, or she'll bring me what's even cooler is she'll give me somebody's old dentures, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So of course, sterilized, of course,
Of course, yeah.
they're sitting in alcohol, So, and I've used dentures for stuff, but I make my own teeth. I have molds for all that stuff, like the giant. I had to
Yeah.
make my own teeth for him, and I
That makes
cast
sense.
them in special resins to emulate enamel for teeth and the gums and all that. So I
Wow.
do a lot of that, but if I can take the lazier route and use real animal teeth, my neighbor across the street, he's like a groundskeeper for a lot of places in the graveyards throughout the region here, and he picking up roadkill for me all the time and says,
I
"Can
was
you
gonna
use this?"
ask you if you use roadkill.
Yeah, yeah, and so he's got a big field out back behind his house, and he lives across the street. So we'll throw it out there and let the buzzards worship him as a god. They
I
actually have
bet.
erected statues to him and all that stuff. They're always flying over the back of Bob's backyard. They're always circling and stuff. And so when the buzzards are done and the bugs are done, I have all kinds of raccoon skulls from possum skulls from roadkill that are way back in the back there that I go and get. And there's teeth from those in a lot of my smaller things, my smaller sculptures, and you
Makes
know, yeah, all kinds of goofy stuff.
Sorry,
Yep.
that just reminded me. My brother was just telling me he hunts and everything, but he's like the guy you go to clean up the skulls and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
guess for a while he tried the flesh-eating beetles that you would do that, but I guess he said it was more work than it's worth or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I just let nature do it. The guy across the street's also a deer hunter.
Yeah.
We live in probably the most. I mean, if you go out on my back porch at like 1 in the morning, there's like an army of deer just walking down the middle of the street.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It's
Believe you.
literally herds of deer around here.
Wow.
It's hard not to hit deer when you're, it's like they're everywhere. So
Well, you're Midwest, aren't you? I'm Indiana.
yeah, we're near Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. Yep. We're not too far.
So we're in Licking County, it's called Licking County because there's more deer licks in here than any other place in the world. Literally,
Wild.
it's so the deer, although growth is starting to happen and the poor things are starting to lose a lot of, of their space. They're sort of kind of adapting by just showing up in people's backyards and, but yeah.
We live right next to McCormick's Creek State Park, which is the oldest state park in Indiana, but they do organized hunts now and again, or else they would just be overwhelmed
same here.
in this area.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, and there's coyotes and stuff. Go out in my backyard in the middle of like a fall night, you'll hear them all howling, just yipping, and you hear them all doing that. Yeah, so he brings a dead coyote over once in a while, and we let it, the bugs take care of that, and I'll get coyote bones, and just I've got a whole barn down the hill here loaded with crazy crap in chests and stuff that's all locked away, and when I need something, I can go and look into my barn and see what old clothes I got or whatever.
I can't imagine like if you just randomly moved out and somebody just showed up and went into your barn or your studio or
Oh
something.
yeah, oh yeah, yep,
That
yeah,
would be an experience.
right, yeah. I would be investigated.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
whenever
look,
oh, go ahead. Oh yeah. Oh my God, dude. Are they real?
yeah,
Most of them.
yeah, most of them, yeah.
So do you
And
get them from like old universities or?
I've been collecting. I love oddities, and I especially love the skeleton, human anatomy. I don't know if you can see. I can't tell what I'm. Can
Yeah,
you see the skeletons over
I
here?
sure can. And I have a more
Okay.
important question. Is the house haunted? It has to be haunted.
No, no, there wasn't anybody lived here that was any. There was before us. There was only one family that lived here. Do I?
anytime a new skull or skeleton comes in, I do a little blessing for it because, we're
Mhm.
not trying to disrespect it.
Yeah, yeah. We got
Yeah.
some smudge stick and
Yeah.
smudge,
All right. Well,
Just-
that's good.
yeah, yeah.
One
Keep
thing I
it-
saw when you were painting over was a certain sculpture that you used. We were talking about using elements that your friends gave you and such.
Oh,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah,
you
yeah. I told
telling me
you. Yeah.
that you have friends that will donate their hair. Well, everybody sees my hair is a little bit shorter here. I cut it off and I mailed it to my friend here, and
Yeah, you're in that coif of hair there. Can you see it okay?
yeah, it looks fantastic. She is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, you are all in the front here.
Oh
You
my
know,
God.
the hair towards the back here is really heavily sprayed with lacquer, kind of a flat lacquer to make it so, I'll give you the whole side view if you can see it.
Wow. Now, is her base a real taxidermy piece or is that a
No,
sculpture?
no, no. There's no real taxidermy on this,
Okay.
unless you count Susan Shorter hair. Um,
I wonder how much
everything
DNA
else
you
is,
have there. Sorry, go ahead.
everything else is resin and wood for the base. But yeah. So there, this is I use like animal paw stuff that are been mummified and cured and stuff that the bugs can't eat. You know,
Yeah.
but I didn't do that on this piece. This is cast in a translucent resin so you can see through the fins, you
Okay.
know. But other than that, it's solid resin that
That leads
I
me to a few questions. My friend Kelly was wondering, like, the hair, how do you get it? Because she does dolls and such, ceramic dolls and everything. How did you get it to
Mhm.
stay like that?
I actually I mounted it on a piece of wood so that it was vertical.
Okay.
And then I sprayed it with a real heavy duty clear flat lacquer and just really sort of really penetrated the hair. And with a comb, I combed it into a fine comb. I combed it into the hair. And then I let it dry, so that it was
Brilliant.
clamped to a board up vertical, up and down. And I just hit it with a blow dryer to slowly dry it to hold it in that position. And when I had it that way, I added to your hair to the front of it to give it, because this hair is artificial. It's a artificial hair for wigs. This is synthetic hair in this case. And then your hair added the realism that I needed
Nice.
to get it. And it was nice multi-tonal. This was all one color, so your hair's being added in sporadically throughout, blended it into, and made the whole thing look real.
I'm
So,
just over the moon excited that I'm a part of something.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
So, any of you out there that are getting, longer than 3 inches cut off your heads, the giant, all of that beard, that was real dude beards, from guys from a LuxCon, you know.
wow. So do you place them in like individually with a tweezer or something to?
No, yeah, I use a rooting needle. It's basically a sewing needle where the eye of the needle is the ends of chopped off, so it's like a fork. There's one long prong and there's one short prong. Put that in an X-Acto knife holder, and you just grab and plunge, grab and plunge, grab and plunge until your eyes cross.
I bet.
So yeah, it's a Zen thing. You really have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if you ever noticed on Facebook, but my husband has hair that's like down to his waist now, and he's been talking a lot about getting it, totally chopped. And if he does, I will say, and it's beautiful, never been dyed.
Oh, I've seen it. Yes, I've seen your husband's hair, and I would kill to be able to do that. I tried to grow my hair long, and
Yeah.
this shit, it just stays 1 inch long. It just won't grow. And then this up top here, this will grow, and I'll look like a haystack. It looks ridiculous. It'll be like a bouffant.
Like Sideshow Bob or something.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. So, even the girl that cuts my hair, I'm like, you think I could ever? She's like, this is the only thing I can do with your head. This is the only thing that looks even semi-human. So, and she's being nice. So,
Oh,
and,
well,
and she saves hair for me, when
Yeah.
when I go to get my hair cut, they'll be like, oh, look what, we got another bag of hair for you.
that's hilarious.
It's all nice and rubber banded up so it stays, usable.
Yeah.
So, and any of you that donate hair, try not to let it just get, just just put it in a nice long rubber band the end of the snip, and then
Yeah.
off to.
No, I had so much fun at my haircut because it's a very foo-foo salon that I went into, but the girl is super cool, tattooed and all that kind of stuff. And so when I was telling her and I showed her like what you do, she thought it was so freaking awesome. And I bet that's the only time that's happened there. So, but oh, talking about your work, before I forget, my friend Phil wanted me to ask you how do you get such gorgeous, great skin depth on your pieces?
It's silicone. A lot of
Okay.
people go latex, and no, it's not latex. Nothing wrong with latex. I just don't use it. I just never really, I grew up using silicone. So this is platinum pure silicone.
Okay.
It'll last for, it's been life tested for 40 years because that was how long they could test up to. It'll obviously live forever. It's just, that's the only machinery they can use to test it as far as life goes for an artist material. It's translucent. So you paint it much the way the concept of like doing a watercolor painting, where
Yeah.
the white in the painting, the white of the paper that's the lightest value on the paper. Silicone, you paint, you tint the skin before you pour it into the mold. You tint it a very light color, of the lightest color of the skin, and then after you've demolded it, pulled it out of the mold, you mix pigments in with silicone paint, which is, part A mixed with part B, so it will cure. And then you put a little bit of red, and then you paint the red on. Put a little bit of green, you paint on the green, and you wash it. It's all in washes. And then you put higher concentrations and stuff in the wrinkles and the nasolabial fold and the forehead wrinkles and all that. So that's how it's done. Sometimes I use an airbrush and then just put the slight blue in the veins,
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff. So that's how that happens. And that's what allows me to root hair too. You really can't root hair very well in latex the way you can. And so you can do it, but it doesn't just have the same effect as silicone. Looks like the hair's growing right out of the
Yeah.
silicone. So, and it's not breakable. It's really durable stuff. So I love the material. It's not easy to work with. It takes you do have to practice. It's extremely expensive, because when I say platinum, that's because platinum is an ingredient, platinum silver.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a
It's the same stuff that they make artificial limbs out of.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
As
somebody
close to real as possible. Right.
somebody loses a whole eye or something, and with skin cancer or something, and they
Yeah.
put it blends right to your skin. They lose a nose or something. They do that, or arm, so same
Okay.
stuff.
I'm curious. It's like, I did get super into sci-fi's Face Off, so I know a little bit about this kind of stuff, but just
Mhm.
as I emailed you, I was like, just talk to me like I'm a wide-eyed little kid. I'm curious how the process goes when you're creating one of these life-size creatures. Like what does from A to B look like?
I meant to get a mold. Shoot. Uh, I was going to show you an actual mold of some of this stuff. Uh, um, First, you start with an armature, and then you sculpt on that armature for, say, the head.
Like
Okay.
wire or wood, or what's your base generally?
I'll be right back.
Okay, sure.
I'll be right back.
So you
Okay,
said,
I guess we weren't entirely prepared.
oh, it's all good. I can always interject photos over the top of the areas where we're talking too. But you said you went to art school. What's your jam? What do you do?
No, I not art school. I was an art minor. I was a creative writing major and art minor at BGSU, Bowling Green State University. Um, and yeah, so I can help with the kind of writing aspect and the art aspect. Really, the most of it is the skilled labor aspect that he needs to do.
All right, I just grabbed this real quick. This is sort of this is an armor. She's got a plastic bag over it, and there was going to be a
Okay.
small one.
Looks
And
like
the
you're
head
killing a child, but go ahead.
yeah, well, the child was dead. I had started to sculpt another
Oh, yeah.
child vampire in this, and then this is just clay. You know, this is sculpting. It's getting hard. Anyway, it's just a foam. I use a 3-pound foam, and I use cardboard, and I tape it up and stuff, and I pour foam into it, and it rises and it cures. And I've got like a mold of a general skull that I use, and I sculpt it in foam. And the reason I use foam is because foam is really soft, and if you need to, you can just chip the foam out of the way, and make stuff smaller and sand it down and all that stuff. And then I push clay over that. And so anyway, you get the idea. That's the beginning of a sculpture there that I set aside when I went on to something else. And I found out that I didn't need to do this, and I could just use an existing head for what I wanted to get done. But so after that's made, I'll use this as my prop. After that's made, I'll make a mold of this.
Okay.
And you can't just, you got to have a parting line. So I'll sculpt it. I'll sculpt a clay fence all around one side of it, lay it on its back so gravity's working for me, and I'll start putting this material. It's an epoxy stuff, and it's made. Everything I do is, the materials all come from one company, Smooth On.
Okay.
I love Smooth On because I can just call my girl up there, and she already knows what I need. I just tell her the quantity, And
That's fantastic.
yeah, I've got a relationship with these people that's wonderful. And anyway, I put that stuff on there, and then I back it up with a more substantial material that can take some torque when I pry the mold apart. So, when that's hard, I flip the thing over and I do the other side, peel the clay off. I wax this outside with some hot wax, material so that it won't stick together. And then I put a screwdriver pry hole in there so I can pry the thing apart. And then the sculpt is destroyed. So you got to get the mold right or you've ruined everything.
Sure.
And that's the basics, the very rudimentary basics of how a mold is made. So,
so when you're making these, do you ever make duplicates since you have the mold?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. This is like, I did a life-size sculpture some years back of Baba Yaga. She's the witch that
yeah, I love her.
Yeah, so I'm working on her now. And can you flip that light on now?
Oh, yes, I can see her. Yeah, she looks fantastic.
Yeah, well, I just yesterday I made this hat this was made from our old couch. Leather. There used to be a couch down here where I used to work sitting on the couch, and it really got beat up. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to cut the couch up and use the foam for stuff, and I used leather. So I carefully removed all the staples and stitches and stuff, and so I made this hat from the leather. Giant shoes were made from that same couch.
Makes sense.
So,
naturally distressed.
Yeah, and then I'm going to dye this stuff all these dirty old colors and some kind of Halloweenish colors. She's got a knife and fork because she eats children. So on the base of this bust, it's a bust. there's going to be all these. I've got some recast of some, like some child skulls, and bric-a-brac and little teddy bears and stuff that she used to entice the kiddies. So it's like she was the witch from Hansel and Gretel. That whole folklore that came from that.
Yeah.
Came from Baba Yaga. She was like the beginning of the evil I eat children witch. Had a house that walked around on chicken legs. It was, pretty elaborate little.
Yes. That's where I've heard
folklore.
that. Friend of mine illustrated her house for some dark t-shirt that she made, but
Yeah. She's sort of picked up kind of a resurgence, the folklore, just like Krampus. Nobody knew what Krampus was 20 years ago, and then suddenly now Krampus is okay. Back to us. Krampus is get that light again. Is now it's kind of popular. Bram did a really cool book.
yes.
So.
Oh, I wanted to ask you when you were talking about making the heads and all of that sort of thing. It's one thing when it's your own creation, but how does that change whenever it's portraiture? Like you did that piece of Jack Nicholson and The Shining. So are you just looking at pictures of him and sculpting that? Damn, it's so
Yeah.
right on. It looks like you molded his face.
No, I didn't mold his face, but sometimes I will buy a life cast.
Okay.
And then, of course, the life cast is just, you got the weight of the material that was on the guy's face, but it gives me something where I can take my calipers
Sure.
and measure, because that's as close to life as you can get, So their faces sort of always, when people are getting paste smeared on their face, they always look like they're often,
Yeah.
So I've got to then take that, make it smile or make it express it. So, but it gives me a start. It shows me how long the nose is and all. I mean, you can see, I don't know if you can see up there, but all those life casts, see them?
Yes.
I've got a big collection of life casts of I've even sold some that I didn't need anymore. But I have a life cast collection of a lot of old movie stars and, Vincent Price and Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney, all of the classics. And I got Jack Nicholson's cast for that film.
Yeah.
So, or around that time. I don't think it was for The Shining. But there was another movie made within, a short amount of time of that I got a cast from him. And
Now,
it was a, so his age was appropriate to the time The Shining was filmed.
Now, Guillermo del Toro, he owns that one?
Yeah,
Shining
he
one?
commissioned it. Yeah.
How did you get acquainted with him? He is amazing.
Everybody thinks I've got him on speed dial, and they're like, and I wish that people wouldn't do this a little bit, but they're like, hey, I've got this wonderful script and I want him to see it. And I'm like, can you give me his address? And I'm no. No, I don't, he emails me once in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And says, and there's never more than a sentence long. And he's like, hey, let's do Poe,
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I'll shoot him a price and he'll go, okay. And then he'll wire the money. And then he doesn't, he's only art directed one piece. And that was Lovecraft,
Oh, yeah.
But, I don't I don't call him up and say, what are you doing? You're watching the game,
Oh, sure. Yeah. But you guys
Yeah,
have the
he's not-
same aesthetic. How did he find you at a convention or in
So
Spectrum?
what happened was Rue Morgue magazine back in when was it? 2011, 2012?
Oh, no. It was like 2007, I think.
2007. God. They did an article on me, and it was one of the nicer articles because I always say stupid things that I trip over, and then people print only the stupid stuff, and all the smart stuff gets edited out, and they get all of information wrong and everything. So, but But this girl, Jovanka Vukovic, did a phone interview with me, and I said, please, like, make me look good. And she didn't disappoint. She really did a great, great job. And she went on to do some film directing for, you know, some cool stuff that got on Netflix.
And they did a great layout.
Yeah, and they did
Photography.
this awesome layout. I can't remember the guy's name who did the layout, but he was really, really good. I really should remember him because I'm friends with him on Facebook. And Gary, what's his last name? Right. Anyway, he's really good, and he did a beautiful layout of all that. Well, Guillermo happened to be a big fan of that magazine. Right. And the editor of that magazine is named Monica S. Kuebler. So he thought I was married to her, you know. And the magazine is based in Canada. So he emails me and says, your wonderful wife did a great, you know, piece on you. And I said, oh, he goes, can you meet for lunch? And of course, I'm living in North Carolina, and he's in Toronto at the time. And I'm like, I'm looking up for planes. He's like, oh, I thought you were right here because it's in Toronto. The magazine's based in Toronto.
So he thought they were married.
So he thought we were married, you know. Like, no, we're not even related that I know of, you know. So anyway, that got his attention. And then he was like, oh, I got to have that Frankenstein skull. So he bought the Frankenstein skull, and then he started looking at my work. And then what was the first thing he commissioned?
Schlitzie, I think.
Schlitzie. Yeah, he wanted me to do Schlitzie from the movie Freaks. Okay. And then I went through almost every character in the movie Freaks, from Todd Browning.
I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah.
You're not familiar with the movie Freaks?
Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like I should be ashamed now.
No. Yeah.
It's like a 1930s film with real circus sideshow freaks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I know what art you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not weird. It's just that I assume everyone is as weird as me, because I saw this movie. What this movie came from, Todd Browning did the movie Dracula.
Okay.
And with Bela Lugosi. And it went off the charts as far as, you know, everybody loved Dracula. So the movie studio went to him and said, you did such a fantastic job with Dracula's success. Is there a movie you want to do? And Todd said, yeah, as a matter of fact, yes. Now, Todd was the guy who did run away and join the circus when he was a kid. And many of his friends were sideshow freaks. So he got together with all of those sideshow freaks, and they did the movie Freaks, which was at the time named for a book called Spurs. And I'm not sure why they called the book Spurs. I think it has to do with spurs from horses. Okay. However, he did this movie, and it showed in a couple theaters, and the review board slashed it to ribbons, and it ended his career. You know. Damn. And years later, it was rediscovered in the 60s, and now it's got a huge cult following. And I am at the leader of that cult, and so is Guillermo. Everybody loves this movie. And
it all sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Guillermo was a big fan of that film, so he had me do all the characters from Freaks. So I did the Cuckoo the Bird Girl, and Johnny Eck the Half Boy, and so I did all these characters for him. What? Hans the Midget, who the show was about. So I did Hans, you know. And then one day, you know, I say, I suggest one more, and he goes, no more Freaks, you know. Now I want you to do Poe. Let's do Poe. You know? So that's kind of, you know, our relationship, is that he would have me do things, and it would be a very brief contact. I had dinner with him once, but it was with a bunch of other people. I got to meet him at the opening of the At Home with Monster show, which toured various museums art museums around the country.
That would have been so cool to see.
Oh yeah, I met all kinds of movie stars and stuff there. And What?
But he's a great guy. We got to
We
got to really meet him more in Toronto and stuff. And he's a really
he's
guy.
he's a sweet human being who's busier than all get out. He's got more going on. So my interaction with him is once in a great while, and it's very brief one at that, and it's usually in an email that's, I said happy birthday to him. I said, I'm glad you were born. You really made my world much better. And he emailed me back and said, mutual, gracias.
Aww.
That was it,
Yeah.
So that was my last communique with Guillermo, was on his birthday.
That's sweet. I just have so much respect for him because he clearly has such a passion for real traditional artistry. Like what he did with Pinocchio. My favorite thing was watching the making of. And he's just an awesome person to always have in our corner. And just everything that he makes, everything that comes out of that brain is just incredible.
Oh yeah. He's a champion for the traditional artist for sure. He
100%.
he will remain such. I know it. He's going to be our, one of our torch carriers.
Yeah. Well, talking about clients and stuff, I mean, you don't have to say numbers if you don't want to, but I'm curious because with the cost of the materials that you do, the amount of experience that you have, the amount of hours these things have to take, like hand planting, hairs and stuff, what is your method or what for pricing these pieces?
That is the hardest question anyone that ever asked me, because I basically, when I'm done with the whole thing, I step back and I come up with a price, and then Kara yells at me that it's too low.
My husband does too. Yeah.
And then she goes, remember the grief you went through when you were doing this part of it? Or remember when you were making the mold and that screwed up, so you had to go back and do it over, and all the hours and all the materials you put into it.
Yeah.
And so at the end of it all, we just go, this is the price. And sometimes it sells, and sometimes it sits on the floor for 5-10 years, and then somebody gets it later.
Yeah.
And I get asked that question so often, and I never have a good answer because the answer is always changing.
Yeah.
I don't just do silicone work, obviously. I do a lot of resin work. I do a lot of original work. I use a lot of epoxy sculpt and make original pieces using epoxy sculpt. I do a lot of this. Can you grab that skull there?
Are any of your pieces ever posable, like have a wire frame or anything like that?
Yeah. Yep. So that one, the skull. The skull. Thanks. Yeah. What's that? Oh, well, too late. This piece here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do. This is, it's like a one of a kind piece that starts with bone, and then so
that's not actual bone and horn. That's the sculpt.
This is real horn.
Okay.
That's real. Yeah. The rest of it is a bone-like resin.
Okay.
So, this is cast iron. This part here, that's a real log with, so there's stuff that, I do stuff like this along the way as well. So
I have so many friends that would wig out on that piece. That was very cool.
Yeah. Well, I might be bringing it to a LuxCon, and
nice.
We'll see. But.
So, do you make most of your living just conventions and commissions? Is that your thing?
Yeah, all over the place. It's commissions are. You can probably put that back over. The commissions are once in a while. Mostly it's stuff that I want to make, like this Fiji mermaid was started. I just wanted to make it, and then now it's going somewhere. I'm going to make another one and put it up for sale. Because I made molds for it, so it's wire reinforced. So there's
that one right there was a commission. So that one is not available for anybody who asked.
Yeah, but I have another one that I'm going to cast up, and then that's when the work. People think, oh, you've got a casting of it. The work begins after you pull it out of the casting mold
Yeah.
and start making it look real. Because there's days and days of painting it and then putting stitches down the chest and hair. And, it's got to be assembled. It's got to have a base made. I got to find the hardware for that. It's just a lot of stuff goes into it.
That all sounds so fun to me though. Like this just gets me excited even talking about this kind of stuff. But you mentioned having a base and all of that. How do you ship these pieces? Do they come apart? Do you build crates for them? Like how do you get them from home to the convention?
I
Okay.
do. When I ship them, I've gotten really good at and watch I say this, and the next thing I ship's going to break. But I've gotten really good at packing delicate. And there's the best thing I could tell you is when a couch gets old and somebody throws it away,
Yeah.
I'm jumping out of my car in traffic and grabbing those cushions. And then I'm carving them up with one of those electric steak knives for the more delicate stuff.
Smart.
And carving
Yeah.
little receptacles out of the cushions to, go around stuff. And then it goes in a box, and I reinforce the box with rolled up cardboard stanchions to keep it crush proof. And, it's like I've got shipping boxes of delicate stuff down to an art where if you broke it, you wanted to break it. So there's that. I build my own crates. I'm a pretty good carpenter, so I do that.
For the life-size pieces, for the bigger pieces, they always need to be created.
When I do shows, we bought a van. We have we've got a what is that?
A Ram.
Ram van. A ProMaster City. That's perfect for shipping this big work. When I did the giant, he came in 2 parts. I don't know if you remember, but
No, I was curious about that.
yeah, he had a bolt that went right through his belly button.
Oh.
And so I would just pull the bolt out, and then there was one in his butt that came out, and then you pull those bolts out, and he the top gloved over the bottom, So you put it together and rock him right up to his feet, and he weighed like 400 pounds, but I could do it by myself. And
the legs parts come off.
Oh yeah,
the lower legs also.
Yeah.
So really, it's 4 parts.
Yeah, that's right. Because I forgot the feet. The feet. There's a big square piece of steel in each shin bone that telescopes into the thigh. And so you put those in there, then put his top on it to rock him right up to the sky.
Then do you dress him afterwards, or is he like?
All you do is put his overalls, buckle his overalls up so his pants aren't falling down.
What about the critters? Are they like attached to him?
Yeah, no, the critters are in a little box, and I just put the critters. They have little pegs coming out of the box, wires coming out, and there's little wire receptacles where they land on this. Yeah.
Now, did you find them?
Has to be what?
Did you find them already taxidermied in that position, or did you have to hire somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was like an afterthought. We went to this. My buddy Clem Kunkel has a place called. We went to visit him at Cleveland Curiosities. Look it up. Go visit the store. It's off the charts cool. He and his wife have created this little place for guys like me to go and look at crazy stuff. And, they sell all kinds of stuff, crazy taxidermy and weird art. And so Cleveland Curiosities.
Very cool.
I got the little, they at the time, they're always changing their inventory. And at the time they had these baby raccoons, probably from some roadkill situation,
Yeah.
And they were taxidermied, and he's like, hey, I got to show you something. And I'm like, I'm buying those. So,
I wanted to ask you, because you are in the Midwest, have you ever had any like negative feedback from locals about the dark stuff you do?
Not here. We lived in North Carolina for 10 years. We went down there to sort of escape winter. And we were right in the talk about the Bible Belt. I mean, this isn't the Bible. North Carolina's the Bible Belt.
Okay.
They're like, it's all Pentecostal churches, and there people would see the work and just make these faces. And then inevitably they go, "Did you ever do Jesus?" You know,
No.
I roll
I
my
think
eyes.
that would be
Going,
creepier than a giant to
yeah,
have a
well,
giant realistic Jesus at the show.
that was their way of saying, "This is the only way you're going to go to heaven, son." You know, you got to redeem yourself. The devil's going to get you. So we kind of moved away from there for various reasons, mostly to be closer to Kara's family up here.
Yeah.
So, but that was kind of one of the reasons we got there. The first question when we meet somebody new is, "What church do you go to?"
Oh,
In North Carolina, it's like,
Small
Yeah.
town North Dakota. That's
yeah,
what they do.
it was in a small town. Yeah.
That's good.
So we just, it was we were fishing out of water down there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever do any shows around Indiana?
Not yet. I mean,
Well, the Mass
oh
Fest.
yeah, we did Mass Fest. I'm sorry. God. Yeah.
Mass Fest was in Indianapolis, but now this year they're changing it to Cincinnati for the first time. It piggybacks on the back of Horror Hounds show, the
Yeah.
Halloween kind of show, masks and busts and things.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we've been coming to various years of Mass Fest in Indianapolis, including last year. But now this year we're going to it in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So
All right. I was just trying to think of ways that my friends could come out and see your stuff that's not traveling far away.
yeah, we've never done Gen Con.
Yeah.
So I don't
Totally
know.
should. I mean, I know it's not gaming, but it's people that love fantasy stuff and it's dark fantasy. So
Yeah. Yeah. We did Dragon Con. I was asked to be a juror for the Dragon Con art show, and part of that was bringing my own work, and that was fun. But when the cons get like super big, like Comic Con, it I'm I'm kind of what a lot of people have called as a extrovert to introvert,
yeah.
where you can handle people for a short while,
Yeah.
and then you just want to crawl in a hole and go, "Get away."
Yeah.
I'm that way. She's a little bit that way too, but I really am. I have to, even at a LuxCon, sometimes when the nights go late, I have to go to my hotel room
Yeah.
and decompress because I can't socialize. The ADD thing plays heavily into that kind of thing.
I just
where
get
you're-
drained. And yeah, I had to go back to the hotel room and
Well,
recharge.
part of my problem is that,
Yeah.
and this is it. This is the adult attention deficit thing. I can't concentrate on a conversation when there's 5 conversations going on around me.
Mhm.
And I heard somebody say it's sort of like you're trying to watch a TV show and somebody changes the channel. And you're like, "I was watching that." That's what happens with conversations with my brain sometimes, where if somebody starts talking 3 feet to my left while I'm talking to you, my brain involuntarily dials into some of their conversation while I'm trying to listen to what you're telling me. And I'm like, "Come on back. I need to talk to Susan, brain." And my brain's going, "No, but I want to hear this too." And I'm like, "I don't want you to listen to that. I want to hear what she's saying." And then that argument starts in my head.
Yep.
And I'm missing both conversations because I'm arguing with myself inside my brain. And that happens a lot when I'm out in these big situations where there's so many people and it's going all day long. And by the end of the day, that's what's happening in my head.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to keep up. So,
Well,
and the more
Oh, go ahead.
the more I talk to other artists, the more I find that they're a lot like me.
Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of ADD, which is why we became artists, because it's a very solitary thing.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, but that is one of the byproducts of that issue, is
Sure.
that your ADD, that happens. And in those heavy crowds, that's why I love a LuxCon, is because a LuxCon is right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Not so light that why did I even bother? There's a lot, and all the people are there for one reason. They're there for the art. They're not there to get the autograph of some has-been horror star from the 70s.
Yeah.
They're there to see your work, and that's the reason they came. And it's not so heavy that there's a ton of people in the crowd that really aren't there to see your work, and they're got BO and they're drunk and they're a party,
Yeah.
and so that happened a lot at Dragon Con, where we were in situations where we just wanted to escape, and we couldn't, so, but people can deal with that stuff better,
I
they're cut
came to a
out.
certain level at the Gen Con. It was my first year in the art show, and it was exciting and all that. But yeah, there's so many people. There's people talking to you from every side, and
Mhm.
you're wanting to be cordial and smile and answer their questions, and you're being, the face of your booth. But I remember trying to go out to dinner. I think it was Saturday after we had had so many days already, and I had a full-on panic attack, one of the worst I'd ever had because I was spent.
Mhm.
But at a LuxCon, I haven't had that, and I think it's also because the people that are coming to your booth and stuff, it's colleagues, it's the other fantasy artists, it's people that know what you're going through and can talk to you on a different level than just somebody who just likes the work can talk to you. So, and
Yeah.
yeah,
It's become a large, almost a family, and then the new members start coming in over the years, and the younger artists start to blend into the veterans, and then they become the veterans themselves, and it's grown to that degree now, and so that's one. I mean, the last couple times I've been there, it's been as a civilian. I didn't have enough work to bring because a lot of the work was commissioned.
mm,
Um, so I just wanted to come, and Kara, obviously, being as close as she is to the Wilshires and me,
yes.
wanted to come and just see them and see what we could do, and just be around those people. It's a way to recharge your creative battery and get that love of other artists. We need to take care of each other, and that's one of the biggest ways that we do it.
I always walk away so inspired. And I remember the first time I met Jeannie, I knew who she was, of course, and we were friends on Facebook, but I was a little nervous to meet her. I just remember walking up the table, and before I could even say hi, she was like, "So sorry," and then came over and gave me the biggest hug. And
Yeah, yeah,
been in love with
yeah.
them ever since. But I know you guys are really close to them. And she just got some very sobering news. And so I'm hoping maybe you could tell people about the GoFundMe that you set up so that maybe we can get some more donations to help them.
Well, I'm gonna let Kara take that because she's the one that really, she loves her like a sister, and I mean, Jeannie's come out and spent a week with us, and we just did fun stuff and went to parks and restaurants and stuff like that, and they got to spend a lot of time together, and that was just last summer, and so when we
No,
got this news,
No, my birthday.
was it? Oh, that
Yeah, but yeah.
was it your birthday?
She came from, yeah.
It was
So-
really nice weather.
It was unseasonably nice. I have a February birthday, but it was unseasonably nice.
Yeah, really. I was like,
So-
wow.
Yeah.
How did we?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing all this outdoor stuff, and it's like a
Mhm.
lot of times a February birthday in Ohio is not an outdoor experience.
Oh,
But
yeah.
December
guess
here, I feel ya.
Something to be said for climate change.
oh, yeah, but yeah. So actually, her GoFundMe basically at this point it might be fully funded now. It was last I checked before this interview, it was very close. She as a great surprise to her, got breast cancer without any knowledge of any family history of that. And basically, yeah, I decided, okay, let's do GoFundMe, because honestly, I mean, they're both self-employed, as we are self-employed, and that means we have insurance, they have insurance. I mean, but I think everybody knows insurance doesn't cover everything. You've got the deductible, you've got these other expenses. So many things need to get approved for all different kinds of testing and whatever else. So I knew I didn't want them to have that on their minds
Yeah.
of these outside expenses that were not going to be covered by their insurance. And uh, yeah, so started a GoFundMe. It's, I mean, I don't know if you're putting a link or what, but
Yes, I'm
it
going to post a link in the show notes and on the video too.
okay, okay. Yeah. And so yeah, so many people, it's beautiful how many people have stepped up. um you know, she's a very loved person and sorry.
No, you're fine. I think it's just her kindness being reciprocated. I mean, both of them are just wonderful. And I'm just so it's been very touching just to see everybody in the community rising up to help. So, and I have no doubt that she's going to beat this and we'll all have a drink at a LexCon and everything will be great. So, well,
She as she said in one of the posts that she made, this is going to be a longer term kind of treatment than some things because there's going to be chemo, surgery, and radiation. Chemo, then lead up to the surgery, then the radiation. And so they are not planning for her to
she won't be there.
she's most likely not attending the show.
Okay.
She would be remotely involved at home doing what she can do there. But the show, yes, the show will go on. But she, at that point, probably would still be having radiation treatments, so she would not be in attendance there. But
Yeah, immunities are something you have to take good care of in
yeah, yeah,
that case, and that's not a situation where immunities are going to be well protected, you know. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just hope for a speedy and full recovery after all of this.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She's ready to knock this out. You know,
Yeah. So how long have you guys known them? How long have you been doing a LexCon?
since the very beginning, 2008.
Really?
yeah, we were the first sculptor, I think, to be asked to the show. Vincent Villafranca was in there the beginning, and me and
Tom Taggart and Jordy Shell.
Shell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jordy came the second time. I don't know if he was in the first one. Was he? Maybe he was.
Probably was,
Yeah.
But yeah, we've missed two or three shows in that.
One, we thought our dog was dying.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we did not want to just leave and not, you know, leave him to die alone. We really, and then the little bastard survived for like another year and a half or something. You know, he was acting like he was going to die, and then he just made this big. It's like, I made you guys stay home.
It
And
worked.
he was that kind of dog too. He's a little bastard. We love him so much. Pee Willikers. Yeah.
Aw. So did you
Yeah.
usually do the main show?
Yeah, mostly it's been the last 4 years we've done the showcase, and the showcase just works out better for us all around, because now if I hadn't been a veteran of the main show, the showcase wouldn't have worked out for me nearly as well, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because when I'm there, people, it's like, where's Tom? Well, he's not but he's in the showcase. Okay, I'll find him there, you know?
Yeah.
Had I not been in the main show for all those years in the beginning, I would want to be in the main show now, you know?
Yeah.
The main show is important as a, to kind of establish yourself a little bit for somebody like me to get enough followers that want to come and see your work, to go to the showcase. But what I like about the showcase is there's plenty of artists in the showcase that belong in the main show, like yourself,
Thank you.
that just not enough room for them in the main show.
I've never applied for the main show.
What?
I've never applied for the main show. I've always been, well, one, a little intimidated, but two, I want to apply, but I want to do it when I have a set amount of work that I'm proud of and I'm ready to put on that wall and be like, yes, I'm here, I'm ready. And I feel like I'm building that now. So I'm thinking maybe next year I'll apply.
Yeah.
but
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're material for main show. I've always
thank you
thought
so
so.
much. Thank you.
I I really, and again, jurors change every year, so you know, it's always been one of the reasons I got in to begin with is because there weren't a lot of sculptors, so it needs some sculptors in there, so uh
Well,
But
the
your stuff
first
was also kind of good, but
maybe, yeah, but
the first show was by invitation because they were creating it from
Ooh,
yeah,
scratch.
yeah,
And so we didn't know them, but they knew his work and
sure.
contacted him. And so, yeah, so initially that first year, and I think even the second year was like an invitation thing. And then it was like, okay, there's so many more people that want to get in on this show that we need to do some kind of jury, and we need to expand the show and and that kind of thing. So
It's like the best of the best. I mean, I cannot leave there without just being inspired and humbled at the same time. It's an incredible thing. I can't imagine the main
yeah,
show's like 5 days though. I think that would just be exhausting, but exciting.
it's really a fantastic time. And like you said, maybe you need to take some breathers in the evening or something,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, I think we both, and just me as a fan, as a helper, as whatever, that's like my favorite event of the year, like every year. It's something that rejuvenates people that aren't just the artists. He gets very inspired and renewed and feeling the love, and for me the same. I just feel good there.
yeah, and the other thing about that show is that you get to know all the other artists as people, hence the family thing that's
Yeah.
emerged from it. And you find out that we are so much more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
Just like what you're doing here. What I love about what you're doing with this shorter hour is that you're showing the human side of being an artist and all of the trials and tribulations that go with those of us that have chosen this as our life path. And it's awesome. So you get to know these people that you've worshipped.
Yeah.
I met Greg Hildebrandt there, and he walked up to me the very first time I met him. And today, by the way, it's Greg's birthday, which
Aw.
is 85.
Happy birthday, Greg.
Yeah, and what an awesome guy. But I mean, when I was in high school, I was like, I had the calendars,
Yeah.
but the Hildebrandt brothers calendars of the Tolkien stuff, and it was like, oh! And then this guy comes up to me, and I'm like, and he comes up and he goes, "What are you doing for lunch?" And we went to lunch with him and Jean, and I've learned so much from Jean Scrocco. She's like, this wealth of knowledge and experience about selling art and how all of that stuff, just all between the two of them. It's like, holy crap, these people know all this world experience about the life of being an artist. And he came up and he said, "What are you doing for lunch?" And we went to lunch, and it was like, oh my God, this is so awesome.
Yeah.
And now, we've gone out to visit them and, stayed at their place, and you meet these people, and then you become like family, you
Yeah.
know, and you don't see each other for a while, and you come back, and it's like no time passed.
Yeah.
You just pick up where you left off, and I don't think a lot of other conventions do that. That doesn't happen in the bigger Comic-Con kind of conventions. This is it's a happy place for so
Yeah.
many of us. Yeah.
Well, AlexCon is just like you mentioned, as a setting, it really helps with imposter syndrome, with that whole thing of getting to know they're human. They're not just this superhero painter, because the ones that just blow my mind are Julie Bell and Donato. It's like I've
Yeah.
had their
Yeah.
calendars and posters and stuff. So the idea the first time I was at AlexCon, I'm like, holy shit, I am in a show with these two people. Like I think I still totally nerd out every time I see them. It's like
Yeah.
getting better. Not like I'm Facebook friends with them. I've tagged her on a post, but I know she's human.
Yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
doing
Boris
these
and
kind of shows
Julie,
help with that.
yeah, Boris and Julie,
Yeah.
were kind of the other pioneers behind helping the LuxCon get off the ground too. Although Jeannie and Pat were the father and mother of that.
Yeah.
The Julie and Boris
Well,
were.
they actually had been visiting. That's how Luxcon slash now IX um, was born. Was Pat and Jeannie were visiting Boris and Julie, and they were talking about things, and Jeannie was, she was more of an outsider in the community. Pat had been a collector for all these years, and she was the one that was, knew the least about this, hadn't followed it for as long. But then she's talking to them, and she said, why aren't there more shows like for the artist? For the artist.
Yeah.
And wow, and that just kind of kicked it off. And they just went from there, like, hey, maybe we can do this, maybe we can plan this, we can have this. And it's a powerful show. Let's just say it's a
For
powerful
many reasons,
Yeah.
it addresses the life of being an artist, illustrator, from every angle, all of the issues that we go through, and
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's important for like up and coming artists to know and to see and to be aware of, because it's not all just this beautiful, sun rimmed, you're in painting in a glorious studio and money's just pouring in. It's like it's real life, and we have
Mhm.
relationships and we have ups and downs, and it's just, but I'm very honored to be a part of the Luxcon family. It's been life-changing, really.
Good.
And I owe a
Yeah.
lot to Jeannie and Pat and all of you.
That's how we met,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that giant and I'm like, I have to meet whoever the hell made that thing because it was so cool. But I cannot believe we have talked so long. I do have a couple last things I want to ask. Where can people see you this year? Other conventions or anything?
Well,
Yeah, there's Mass Fest, like I said, is going to be in Cincinnati, and that is, let's see, that's September 13th to 15th.
Okay.
And then the IX Showcase, of course, is October 26th and 27th. And then there's another show he's doing in the fall that we can't mention yet. He was juried in, and they have not made the public announcement yet.
Okay.
So that will also be happening in the fall. And I guess the best thing for people to do would be to go to tomkuebler.com/events, and I'll be updating that there.
Yeah,
So,
they ask that we don't publish that until they do. So, which
Yeah.
a lot of shows do that. So that, once they get it published, then, but it's going to be a fun show. It'll be a little
it'll
more.
be our first time at that show.
Yeah, I
Oh,
haven't been.
cool.
Yeah.
Right on. And you have Instagram and Facebook art site, any other places that people can check out your stuff?
We don't do
Do the
Twitter.
socials?
So it's like, yeah, Tom Kuebler at Instagram and Kuebler Freaks at Facebook.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you have any like comments or words of wisdom for young artists wanting to follow in your footsteps? Attempt
You have
to,
to do what makes you happy.
yeah.
I think that's the thing, is like, well, people get really focused in on money, and well, you got to do it, you can make a living at. And believe me, I tried, but I think the biggest core problem with all of that was that, I use attention deficit as sort of a crutch sometimes in my mind about why this didn't happen. But I think the thing is, none of it made me happy. And this makes me happy. If the money's not coming in or the money's coming in, either way, I'm doing what makes me happy. And so if art makes you happy, there's going to be times when it doesn't make you happy, and you're going to run into rocks when you're digging through the mud, and you got to, you got to get through that stuff. But there's in life, that's how it is.
Yeah.
No matter what you're pursuing, it makes you happy. You're going to run into things, go, oh, this sucks, and then you get past it and you're happy again. And I have a lot of that stuff, but this is the life that I can't think of a better life and a better partner in this life to go through life with,
Oh,
So this has been, it's been an awesome life in spite of myself. That choosing this profession you know, and what's funny is that, you know, when I early on in the interview here, I was talking about the ADD things, and I'm actually grateful for it now
Yeah.
because had it not been there, I would have probably gone into something that I could do
Yeah.
but didn't love, you know. So if you love being an artist, be it in spite of uh, the problems that arise because of it, you know, or around it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Did it make-
Absolutely. I feel like you're
Okay.
talking right to me, so it's gonna hit a lot of
Yeah.
other people
You
too.
have to do, you know, you're only above ground for a short amount of time in the big picture. And if you're just worried about making money to buy a big house and a swimming pool and a nice car, you know, um,
How about at least
that's
wanting
the
a
other
car that
thing.
doesn't still have a tape deck in it, you know, is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
many
I mean,
goals?
we live really, really practically. We
Yeah.
don't live above our means. We live at or below our means in a lot of respects because this is what I love to do. There's so many people out there, or I like go, how's work, you know? And they go, work is work, you know? And they're just making money to buy more toys that they can't use because they don't have the time because they're still working. And I say, how's work? And they go, work is work. And I go, not
Oh, that's
so, you
awesome.
know, and it is sometimes, but for the most part, I really enjoy this. You know, I enjoy doing it.
That's good. Well, hell, I wanna check out your studio sometime if our paths ever cross. I'm gonna
Oh
be
yeah,
texting you
yeah,
guys and see if you're
please.
home.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So
yep.
cool. Well, I just adore the both of you, and I can't thank you enough for coming on here and talking to me and letting us have a peek inside your world. And I look forward to seeing you both at a LuxCon. Do you have any last words before we sign off?
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh,
I really think there needs to be more people like you out there that
mm,
are helping to create this family community of artists that bring us together and help. We have to help each other out. And I think what you're doing is really a strong step in the face of all these new issues that we're creating, that are created, that are having giving artists such a problem, like AI and viruses, you know,
yeah.
all that stuff. You know, people like you doing things like this are really helping us get over those hurdles emotionally and otherwise. So appreciate you. Right back
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you so much. I'm just such a fan of all of you, and I just feel like the whole world needs to see everything that you guys do. So, yes, much love all the way around, and I look forward to seeing you guys at a LuxCon and enjoy the rest of your day. Make some good art.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're probably going to take a walk with the dog. The weather's breaking here for the first time in a week.
Oh,
It's above
yeah.
freezing, and you know, it's not. So the dog is going to force us to do a park walk.
Yeah, I got to take my baby out too. She's been huffing quietly behind me while we've been chatting.
Aw.
Yeah.
But then I think it might be time for a glass of wine and celebrate a really good episode. So thank you both again so much.
All
All right.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Susan.
care. We'll see you.